Thank you.
I think it's,
Thank you.
yeah. I don't know if you'll be able to make it.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Janet, can you do a roll call, please?
Charles Blackland.
Here.
Reed Campbell.
Here.
Tom Haglund.
Here?
Sue Curran.
Here.
Ruth Nelson.
Here.
Bob Nystrom.
Here.
All present.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have just two minor changes to our agenda. So we have, in our district recognition, we have letter D, which our superintendent will cover, as well as on presentations, we have a third presentation regarding ninth grade algebra. Entertain a motion for acceptance of our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Nelson for approval of our agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move right into district recognition.
All right, we have some wonderful recognitions again tonight and some long-standing service to our Warrior home. So I start tonight by congratulating our head Warrior football coach, Ron Stolsky, for his dedicated service and retirement from his historic coaching position at Brainerd High School. We want to take this time to thank Mr. Stolsky for 45 years of service to his athletes, to the coaching staff, to the students, and to the community of Brainerd Public Schools. And so congratulations to Ron on a very wonderful job well done and hard shoes to fill. So congratulations to him. Congratulations also to the Brainerd High School Bowl teams who competed in their first meet of the year, where Brainerd took 1st, 5th, 7th, 10th, and 11th places. The scores were very close, and with continued practice, we hope to see our standings even improve over the next few weeks. We also want to take this time tonight to thank Sourcewell. As we heard this past week, that they are going to be donating $5.2 million commitment towards the construction of our South Campus and the Level 4 facility at ISD 181. We are looking forward to sharing the successes and the impact that this building will bring to the collaboration of with our regional partners. And I just would like to remind everyone that when we originally designed the South Campus, we did it with a moderate remodel. And this is going to provide that opportunity where we can really do some extensive changes and make sure that the facility accommodates the needs of our learners. So what a generous commitment to our school district, and we are so touched. Just so the board and everyone knows, this is the 4th commitment of over $5 million that Sourcewell has given to Level 4 programming. The first one was in Little Falls. Last year, Wadena received this generous donation. This coming year, the donation will be for Level 4 programming in Walker, and Brainerd will receive it the following year. And so we are deeply touched by the kindness of Sourcewell. I would also like to take this time, January 27th through the 31st, 2020, to recognize all of the paraprofessionals within our school district. There are over 20,000 paraprofessionals in Minnesota that are working hard every day to make sure that every child has the education that they need to success both at school and in life. Please take your time when you see paraprofessionals throughout our district to thank them for the unending commitment that they have to our students. I would like to acknowledge that at one time, the date for Paraprofessional Week was scheduled in March. And so that's we were planning originally, and now the governor has changed the proclamation to be this week, the 27th through the 31st of January. But I want you to know that over the course of the spring, that ISD 181 will be recognizing all of our paraprofessionals for a job very well done. So thank you and congratulations to everyone.
Great, well, thank you, thank you. Next will be our public input, if there's anyone from the audience who would like to address the board. See none, we'll move right into our presenters. So we did change up our agenda a little bit from previous, and we'll have our presenters up first, and then we'll get into our building updates, because the building guys tend to get a little long, so. Marcy, so we're gonna talk about our 1920 budget, first revision.
All right, good evening. So in your board packet is a full document. This presentation is a little bit of a summary. So as I'm going through, if you guys had questions when you were reviewing the document, please don't hesitate to interrupt and ask whatever you have. So when we start looking at this year's budget, first of all, I want to start with how we ended the year last year with the audit. The unassigned ended with a positive 101,149. And then LTFM, I did want to note that that was also a positive 1.7 million. That was semi-planned by Earl. He saw the forecast of how the plan was for LTFM and wanted to save for future years and have that go to a fund balance, because we do definitely have some needs in our buildings, and so that did allow for some carryover into this year. Then, so last year's revised budget, 18-19, we take that and, I was gonna say, Corey's sleeping back there. The preliminary budget, we start with 18-19's revised budget and then roll that forward and put in some assumptions. Several of those are listed. So we look at the 2% on the Gen Ed formula, which is $6,438 per pupil. We also looked at increased enrollment due to the high October 1 count in 18-19. That October 1 count was 6,812, which was very high for us, and we rolled the dice and went with that. You'll see coming up here that we did end the year way more down than what we had projected. And then also some of the other assumptions, the special ed formula increasing, that's also going to be going up here in future years. They keep increasing that amount, which is good. Increase in the levy, and then a decrease in the federal funding, and then also any known or estimated employee costs, salary and benefits. That's kind of our big expense for the district. And then the planned net reduction in staffing of approximately 16.56 FTE. So we took that, we put it into place, and the preliminary budget enrollment projections, we had at the time 6,625.3 in the revised 18-19 budget, rolling that forward. So we were up about 83.6. So when we put that into the 19-20 budget, put numbers to it, we had an excess of 31,499 in unassigned. And I always point out the unassigned because that is there's no restrictions on that. You can review all of the other line items on the budget summary, but the unassigned is really where we have flexibility. All of the other ones are restricted by state statute. So for example, on QComp, that there's a plan that has to be followed for that. That's not something that you would be able to say, I want to spend X amount of dollars on this. So if you have questions on the other line items, please feel free, but I'm always pretty much going to be focusing on that unassigned amount. So then with the first revision, we looked at our October 1 count, which was 6,776. So as noted, the prior year it was 6,812. So it is less than the prior year. So in discussions with Lane and Sue, we did feel like last year was an anomaly with, number one, the high October 1 count, and then also the amount of kids we lost throughout the year. So at the end of the year, October 1 to the end of the year, we were down about 2%. Looking back at previous years, the 5-year average was about 1.6, and then just 2 years before, we were down 1%. So we did go with the hopefully being down 1% from this October 1 count in our projections.
And we do a weekly analysis of our enrollment this year, and we're trending way better than what we did last year, and so we're happy about that.
Yes.
And so we felt safe with the 1%.
And then some of the other items that were in this revision, TRA direct aid. So there's an entry that needs to be done at the end of the year per the auditors. And it is a net zero difference, but it does increase revenues and expenses substantially. So it was just a entry basically so that we're not so far off budget at the end of the year. And then LTFM, so in that facilities plan, they had planned that with all the construction going on, the difference of the construction was about $250,000, and that would be what we would use for the current year expenses. And it's not enough for what we have going on. So Reed sat down and projected out how much we may need through the end of the year, and so we had to do a increase of about $500,000 on that line item, just for ongoing building maintenance needs. And we hope that in the future, with all the what's happening with the buildings, is that those needs will go down. But that is going to dip into our reserve, which is why I noted the 1.7 in carryover, because 500,000 seems like a lot, but we did carry over 1.7 million last year. So it will help us get through these couple of years. One other thing that was noted was 2019 B certificates of participation. We issued that late last year, and so I added the debt payments, and the levy for those debt payments is actually coming into the following year, but our auditors are okay with us recognizing the revenue in this year. So again, it's budget neutral, zero, we're increasing revenues and expenses, but it's I did want to note that that is a substantial line item in both revenues and expenses. So as mentioned, the 18-19 October 1 is what's used, the 1%. So the estimated ADM will be 6,564.5 in this budget revision in total, early childhood through 12th grade.
What number did you use again?
6,564.5. And that does have we do have the voluntary pre-K program this year. That is new. As we're working through that, we're learning more about it. But that 17.6 is I got that from Sue, so that's a pretty solid number. On this first revised budget then, the unassigned deficit goes to $729,897. And again, I know that seems like a large number, but in the grand scheme of things, if you take that number divided by our total general fund expenses, it's 0.8% of our total expenses. So it does seem like a swing, but when we look at the student counts and how much we lost versus the total expenses, it's not, Lane would say it's not a great number, but it's not a horrible number.
It's doable.
It's doable. And then another line item I wanted to note on there's $195,492 excess in safe schools. So that's due to that one-time payment from the state. Normally what happens is we collect enough revenue, and that's pretty much what we spend. With that extra payment, it is going to go into our fund balance because we don't have a plan at this time of how we're going to be spending that. But we're working on it. And then on this screenshot, it doesn't have the food service fund, but food service was changed from an excess of $156,502 to $49,502, and that was to recognize how the sales from last year came into play. So if you recall, we had a revised budget, and we ended the year actually a deficit in food service because sales were way down. So we revised the budget to be more comparable to last year with the sales. And then construction fund was updated with July's cash draw schedule. And I think those were the major changes on that. So fund balance, the policy is 5 to 7%. And with this projected unassigned fund balance, it would put us at 7.75%. And I always note, you guys will hear me say this every time, the state recommends 3 months of operating expenses or 25%. So at some point, we may talk about that policy, but for right now, that is what it is. So what's next? So there is a potential of a second budget revision. I'm gonna be receiving an updated draw schedule, and if it's substantially different from what's in there from the July draw schedule, I will present another budget revision. And then we will be using this first budget revision as our starting point for 2021. And then going through all our assumptions, just like before, known or estimated, including 2% on the formula, change in our enrollment, special ed aid, levy, and staffing costs. Is there any questions? That was really quick.
So is this the last year of what we know for the state budget, or is it next year? Do we know?
This is the last, yep,
So we don't really know what we're getting next year?
right,
Okay.
2%.
next,
For 20.
yes, she's right.
Yeah.
2% was last year, I'm a year behind. So we know 2% for this year, 1920, 2% for 2021, and then
Okay.
the one in question is 21-22.
Okay.
Whereas the state aid is going up for special ed. Are the feds doing the same thing?
I haven't reached out to them yet, but like last year when we reached out, they said reduce it by 10 and 15. They've been saying that every year about 10%, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's still being reduced by 10.
Do you see the numbers that way?
As
That's going down 10%? I mean, are they following that pattern?
Title I
year.
is, Title II is reduced even more, it was down 15, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Not good.
Marcy, a couple of things. When we come back and look at the budget again, and on the fund balance, so we've got a 5 to 7% is our policy, which has been around, I think, for a number of years, so it's, so we should revisit. And then, you know, the 3-month operating, but if we could convert that either into dollars or percent from the state guidelines too, so that we just have that side by side.
Yes.
And then also wondering about, I know you mentioned like on our October, you know, we're forecasting to be within 1% or 1.5% for year end. But I'm wondering, looking out 5 years on our forecast here, and that it's such a decline, which is contradicts to what the demographer reported on. So I'm wondering if we could get that data sometime and put these side by side to figure out, you know, is the community going up or down from a population? Because that's really what this is, and it should parallel, I would think, with what the demographer was saying.
Well, and that study is getting to be kind of dated, so it could be something that we actually get a new study on and see.
Well, that was 3 years ago or so, I think.
I think
so.
it was
And-
2015. It was right before I came. that
Yeah,
it
but they had
happened.
a, you know, they had a 20-year forecast or projection, and certainly the first half a dozen years should be fairly accurate, I would think. So otherwise, if there's no value to it in my mind that they have it done. But it'd be nice if we could see why there's such a difference.
I wasn't here at that time, but I can reach out to that consultant and see if they could help explain why we're seeing differences from their projections.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And actually, through last year, we were pretty aligning with, remember, there were 3 levels, the high growth, medium, and moderate. And we were aligning with that middle one pretty decent, but this year, it was really a surprise to all of us, so, because it wasn't what was projected by the demographer, as you said.
I have one other question. You mentioned that in the 18-19 budget that we actually had a surplus of around 100,000. Weren't we projected to be under by 400 to 500,000?
600, yes. And so
Okay.
we had a lot of anomalies that happened in the end. We had savings from, you know, the no school days, and we had tax forfeited sales that those are hard to predict. It's just whenever the county decides to sell land and we get a piece of that puzzle. And luckily, last year it was a larger piece than in prior years. So just all those little things added up to being better than what was projected.
What are you projecting 1920 to actually be?
So with the unassigned, 739 is what's in
The
here.
deficit?
But if we have a similar year to last year, then it would again be maybe a little bit of a surplus.
Okay.
There's a couple points there too, and one of it is that when we do our budgeting, we always budget very conservatively because we want to be closer to breaking even at the end, and we don't want to be budgeting on the other side of it. The other thing is that, as we were talking about today in our executive team, knowing this number with the revised budget, it really tells you that if we tighten our belt between now and the end of the year, anything that we save helps that number. And we've done that every year since we've come, and we will continue to do that. And just, in comparison, last year at this time, we expected that we would have well over $1 million in deficit spending, and we were able to really be careful with our budgeting and look at what the audit came out. And so we can do the same here once again, so.
We should be saving on heating. I mean,
Yeah.
last year at this time, it was 40 below zero.
Yeah, but we've had a lot of
We
snow
have a lot more
removal and ice.
snow.
Yeah, ice and snow.
The reality is,
So
we're,
no.
Yeah, no, look at him.
We haven't missed any school days yet either.
No, we haven't, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
so keep
Yeah,
a close eye on it. We're within 1%, which is incredible for an $85 million budget.
That's right.
Yeah, and back on that enrollment piece too, how about on our own projections that we put together with the birth rate thing?
Yes.
Were we pretty close to that one?
Well, that was where we really got, I guess you could say, carried away, is that October 1 count. When we put it in the projection model, it was so high that it, carried through the whole year, and
Right.
reality hit and it wasn't that good. So that projection model it's so hard because it's taking the prior year, and the prior year could be the anomaly, which is what happened in this case.
But do we need to come up with something different there too?
Right, and that's, I've
And
told
we
Lane.
actually did that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we did when we
The
took
more
this number.
historical data I can get, the better, and so as we're analyzing that, that is something that we can definitely talk about. How accurate is that model?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from Marcy? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, up next, we're going to have a VHS vaping update presentation,
You got a fate for us,
not a demonstration.
not a
No,
demonstration.
no.
Oh.
I don't
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hello.
I'm Amy Jamber, I'm your district nurse at the high school, and you all know Principal Rusk. This year, we know there's a public health issue nationwide with vaping, and no different for Brainerd High School. It's everywhere. So we've gotten together with the assistant principals as well and took a look at what are we doing at the high school and how can we help address the issue. Typically, if a student has been cited for tobacco or vaping, they've received an ISS or an in-school suspension. And our discussion was, is that really an effective tool to help kids with this issue? So I contacted the American Lung Association, and we are certified to offer a program called In-Depth. The court systems are using it as well. It stands for Intervention for Nicotine Dependence. It's Education, Prevention, Tobacco, and Health. It is not a cessation program. It's an alternative to an in-school suspension. So if a student receives a citation, they have a choice. They can either keep that citation, possibly go to court, or they can take this course, which is an after-school program for a couple evenings, and I happen to offer that for you. We started it end of November. We've had some kids go through it. We don't have large numbers to report on, but the students that have taken it, I think, have gained from it. It's not designed to say, are you going to quit? But we do offer a cessation program if they choose to do so. So we just thought we'd report and say that we're trying to make an intervention for vaping and in lieu of punitive. It's pretty simple. Any questions?
So didn't vaping really start when the taxes went up on cigarettes? That's why they started vaping more?
Yes, but I mean, I have some other opinions with it. I think that as the big tobacco industry has been gone after for nicotine, I think they've come up with this alternative to actually go after kids younger. We know statistically if you use nicotine before 18, you're going to be addicted. Kids that wait till after 18, very, very few of them use that product. So when you look at the marketing that's gone behind this, just the idea that we're dealing with bubblegum flavors and grape flavors, we're definitely targeting young kids, 4th, 5th graders, and they've been successful. And so they've couched it as it's an alternative to quitting smoking. That is not true. And if you talk to the medical community, this is a different animal, and it's really going after our kids, and we need to be concerned about it. Because it does, most of it has a nicotine base to it. So once somebody's using nicotine for a short period of time, they're going to be addicted. And if they can't get a hold of a vape, they will turn to a cigarette, and it becomes a moneymaker for big tobacco.
So what was causing those kids to get sick, and why were some dying, and have they corrected that?
In part, there are many products put into a vape juice, many carcinogens, just like a tobacco product. Not as many, but big ones like cyanide and formaldehyde and the big ones. They were using a product that was in microwave popcorn. So when you ingest that product, you're fine. We've all eaten it, I'm sure. But when you inhale that product, it causes something called popcorn lung, and the alveolar actually are compressed. They don't open. It becomes like a chronic pulmonary disease, something you might see in really the elderly, and it's irreversible, and that's what those students have died from. So there has been a requirement that they've removed that product out of vape. Some of the companies like Juul, they've actually reduced their flavoring. They're down to menthol and nicotine flavor, or tobacco flavor only. So there is an attempt, but there's 15,000 flavors out on the online markets. Kids can purchase it in bulk elsewhere. So they're going after some of the big companies, but it's still available. So it's a big issue for us, it really is. Kids like it, I'd be honest. I mean, the kids are really open with me in this course. It doesn't smell. They don't reek of tobacco. It's quite more cost-effective than a tobacco product is. So there's a lot of incentive for a kid to use it. And in their mind, it's picking the lesser of two evils. And so this one doesn't seem so bad to them. But really, in the end, it's really no different than getting into any other nicotine product.
Well, I want to thank Amy. She has just been a wonderful lead on this, helping us look at how do we respond to this. And it is an epidemic, and it's an epidemic in schools. And unlike tobacco, I've been in public education a long time. In tobacco, kids would usually have to go places where it couldn't be smelled.
Yeah.
And so smoke would be seen, smelled. And right now, our area is the bathrooms, which makes it even a more challenging issue because of privacy and the smell. Most of the smells that we're noticing are fruity fragrances, not unlike, say, a body mist that a girl may put on. So it is an epidemic, and unfortunately, some parents that we've worked with have felt like this is a better alternative to tobacco. And I think that Amy and our staff, we've recognized that the health risks are greater.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you for sharing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
thanks for being on top of that.
Yeah,
It's-
you're welcome.
It's a challenge. Thank you. Okay, next up, we're going to have an update on our 9th grade algebra. One more, sorry, guys.
Unless you want to update us
See you tonight. Yep.
I'll just introduce them and then I'll get into the background with the stars. So, this is our intermediate algebra team from the high school, Ms. Marcelo, Ms. Peabody, and Ms. Menzel. We're going to talk to you about the work that they've done in the development of the curriculum, their work with OER and technology, and just the ongoing curriculum work that they've been doing for a number of years now. It's really, really fascinating. I love it.
Thank
We're
you.
excited about it, too, actually, thank you. So I'm Ms. Peabody, I've been with ISD 181 for, I think this is my 29th year, so I've been around quite a while. And so I've seen a lot of things kind of come and go and recycle, and this we're super excited about.
I'm Alexis Marcelo. This is my 13th year in education, but my 3rd year here at ISD 181. And I've loved watching how this has evolved to be what it is right now.
And I'm Janelle Menzel, and this is my 16th year in education and my 14th here in Brainerd. And like these ladies, I am very excited about some of the opportunities we have for students here, and we're excited to share them with you as well. So if you take a look here at the math stigma, maybe some of you have heard other people say these things, or maybe some of you have even said them yourselves.
I'm breaking into a cold sweat.
So math anxiety is a real thing, but it's not genetic. It's actually based on our experiences over time, positive experiences, negative experiences, and that can kind of create this feeling for some that math is not something for them. And so over the course of our careers, we have all heard these things. Some of the most concerning for us are, I got the wrong answer, therefore I don't understand any of the math. And things like, I can't help my child with their math homework anymore. And those genuine concerns have led us to some pretty important brain research. Out of Stanford University, Joel Bowler, Carol Dweck have talked a lot about a growth mindset and the idea that your learning is not fixed and your capabilities are not fixed, but through hard work and perseverance, that you can grow your brain and you can grow your learning experiences. And we actually grow our brain by making mistakes. And I think it's important for students to hear that and to know that in that time of productive struggle, we experience the most growth in our brain, as opposed to your brain doesn't really grow much when you get things right. And there's a picture up there of your brain synapse firing, and that's what it looks like when you make a mistake and your brain makes adjustments, even if you don't realize you've made a mistake. So the brain research on it is fascinating, and that has led us to some pretty big changes in intermediate algebra. One thing too, I just wanted to mention here is how we speak to ourselves. If you have a fixed mindset, you might avoid challenges, where if you have a growth mindset, you might accept them and be willing to participate in something, even if you're not sure how it'll end up. And then a fixed mindset might, how we talk to ourselves might say things like, I will never improve, I will never get better at this, where a growth mindset will say things like, through hard work and extra time and perseverance, I will get there. And so a lot of our items we sum up with the word yet. I don't get this yet. And just how that opens doors for students, instead of focusing on the negative, to focus on the growth potential.
And so we're just going to take a quick kind of trip down memory lane as the oldest staff member of the three. We've been doing a lot of common stuff. Probably for the last 10 to 15 years, we've written common assessments, which led to common grading practices, which led to how do we score those assessments so that we could ensure that a grade in my class meant the same thing as a grade in somebody else's class, as a grade in somebody else's class. To your kids did really well on that topic, and my kids really didn't. So it led to best practices in teaching. What are you doing? How are you teaching factoring? How are you teaching, whatever our concept might be, it really started to lead to that. And so we started to realize that the assessments we were giving were just out of our textbook. So they were what the authors of the textbook thought were important, not really what our state standards aligned with. So we started looking really standard-driven assessments, and you can see now our tests, we have the learning target on there for what that test item is assessing. We score it with that test item. We talk about that common scoring practice, and if my kid does this, that's worth 1 point. That's the same across the board. If they do this, that's worth another point. If they do this, so that we really are nailing down that truly a grade in my course would be the same. It wouldn't matter which one of us we had. And so we do that interrelated reliability, and we score each other's, and we look and make sure that we would all score them the same and that kind of thing. So it started out really with assessments, and it was a summative assessment at the end of the unit. And then we went, if we're going to expect common summative assessments, we really need to be talking about what we're teaching, how we're teaching it, and the standards we're delivering on a daily basis. So it really started to lead to common content, not just on our final assessment, but on everyday stuff that we're doing. So right now, we're at, again, thanks to Tim Murtha, Eric Job, and Principal Rusk, we've been given some time, and we'll talk more about time later on, but it's taken us a ton of time. In the last 2.5 years, we've really tried to get to that point where we even now are writing common templates for how we introduce the lesson. We're trying to come up with those launches that are gonna grab kids and get them interested, and we're in 9th grade intermediate algebra, we are about as common across the board as what you could be, which is awesome, not just for the three of us, and we understand that our collaboration piece, we have to get along pretty well in order for this to happen, and just feel truly blessed that we do. But, you know, in the end, we're definitely trying to decrease our failure rate. I mean, that is a goal of ours. That's a goal at Brainerd High School that we're really striving for. And I think we've done a good job at that. But more importantly, we're trying to get kids to understand math. And sometimes for the first time, and we're not letting them just go on. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're saying this power of yet, like, yep, you maybe didn't get it yet, but we believe that you can. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about the things that we've put in place to help ensure that that happens. So again, as we're moving from whether it's our teaching or our assessments or whatever, you know, when we're talking to our kids, that list on the left side is things we might hear, and we're trying to shift it to that other thing. And so there's some other things now we have in place to help with that. So Alexis will go through that next part.
Okay, so some of those student resources, you know, on a regular basis, any one of our kids can tell you these are the things that we have in place. So starting point is Google Classroom. We have it very organized, and I'll show you that in a moment, where even from teacher to teacher, we start off with one template and then we share it amongst each other. And so our kids are receiving identically between us. So common homeworks, we have 10 or fewer standard-based questions. More is not better. We found that has been the case for a long time with the drill and kill, and trying to push that forward with kids, and it's not helping. You know, what it's practice is making permanent when a kid doesn't understand it. So one of the additional supports we have here, we started a couple years ago, are homework videos. So when we have the parent who says, I don't know how to help my kid, or the kid who wasn't present in class today because they had this event for school or they were out sick or whatever, they have now this video that can act as a resource for them.
Which is actually one of the three of us teaching them how to do that particular standard for that day. So it's not a Khan Academy, it's not like we've gone somewhere else to grab it. It's actually one of the three of us teaching them how to do that very standard for the day.
And it's powerful because they get to hear not only what I'm presenting in math class, but they get to hear from Mrs. Peabody and Mrs. Marcelo as well. So hearing different perspectives across the video, I think, is powerful for students as well.
It's sort of taking the answers in the back of the book and taking it up a notch. I mean, this is really where we're at, you know, to help our students.
We're teaching how to do it, not just what the answer is.
Yep. So we use a program called Edge Elastic for what we call a daily standard check, and this is after we've completed a specific concept. Our students will go through and answer 2 questions. Are we on the right track? Very quick feedback for us, and then we can use that to help target them during our warm-ups for a spiraled review. We also use WIN as a great opportunity for us to pull in students who might not otherwise be able to stay and get that additional assistance before after school. We retest everything for growth. Our kids, you know, if they scored a 90%, we want them to do better the next time around. And if they get 100% the next time around, they deserve that 100%, because at the end of the day, they didn't get it then, you know, it wasn't yet, but by the time it was all said and done, they now get it. And we are currently implementing a program to help with our failure rate for a in-house credit recovery, where each of us will be basically creating our own program for the kids to go back and get credit through us towards semester 1 if they lost it prior to that.
Based on just the standards that they missed the first time through, instead of having to do a full course, a full semester, it would be tailored to them and what standards did you not understand yet.
Yes, so if it's Unit 1, they receive Unit 1 and only Unit 1, and then they can get the credit for the semester. So this is just an appearance of how it might look. These are our topics listed on all of our left sides of our page for our Google Classroom, and this is what a day assignment looks like. You can see the PDF, that's their homework assignment for a kid who's not there, lost it, forgot it, dog ate it, whatever the case is. They can print it off or write it on their own sheet of paper. We have 2 supporting videos to help them out, and that Edge Elastic program listed over there is meant to be their daily standard check. Again, that 2 questions, did you get it? If not, how can we fix it?
How long is a typical video?
No
10
more than
minutes.
10 minutes.
So total of 20 minutes for that particular day. Some days it might only be one 10-minute or less video. Other times it might be up to 20 minutes.
And we ask the kids to support themselves differently. You know, a kid may need an entire reteach of the class. They could watch all of those, you know, and then try it on their own and then check their answers. It may be a student who has no question about what happened in the class. They understand it. They go attempt all of it and then just quickly check their answers through the video. They, you know, could fast forward through it technically if they wanted to. So it's meant to support them based on their needs.
Is it a video of your actual class of you teaching that particular piece?
The kids would just see the pen moving on the screen and our voiceover. So it is what their homework is that day. It's those 10 questions with us actually teaching how to do those 10 questions rather than just showing the work. Like an answer key, we could show a worked out solution key, but it would just show how the worked out, where we're adding the voice with the worked out solution key and going, now remember, you know, when we do this, this is why we do that. And you know, so we're adding that piece to help kids trigger their brain to remember things differently.
So this is getting a little bit in the weeds, and I
That's okay.
apologize. So how do they access that? Where do they go to?
It's in their Google Classroom.
All they have to do is hit the link and it pops up for them.
So even if they didn't articulate to you that they're struggling with it?
Correct.
So if you have a student that's not wanting to raise their hand that way?
Correct.
And we also tend to catch that with the Edge Elastic program too, is because we get to see their data off of that, we know where they don't get it and where they do get it. That data is coming to us immediately, and we'll show you more of that feedback in a
The
moment.
other part of that, part too, is for a special needs population, we're actually reading it to them. I mean, we're reading the problem to them out loud. And they can pause it, they could rewind it, they could, you know, so they can go back over that same concept as many times as they think they need to achieve mastery over that standard.
Edge Elastic also reads to them too.
Yeah.
Well, also with certain cultures, which may not be present in large numbers here in Brainerd right now,
Right.
is for those cultures that might have more of the face-saving piece of it, where they don't want to acknowledge that they're struggling with it.
Right.
They go
Oh,
home.
that's huge. That's a teenage in general.
Yes.
So this is actually some of our data from our final exam. We actually ran it through that program, Edge Elastic, which we did receive funding through our school. Our math budget actually paid for this for us for the intermediate algebra teachers. But what's neat about it is you can see the green, you can see the red, you can see the yellow. We can get immediate feedback. That little blue line is an indicator of the amount of time it took our students. The yellow is a partially correct answer. I can click on every one of those subsections of those colors and see how many students had that. I can go through and actually look at the question and see what were common responses. It's a great teaching tool. You pull that up, that little button that says present right over there, you can hit that and it changes it to where it randomizes the order, throws up a fake name for the kids, and we can start talking about error analysis. And that is a great opportunity for us to have conversations during our warm-up. It is a great program to overall look at our data. And it's not us, I think they didn't understand problem number 14. It's, I know they didn't understand problem number 14.
And then we can spiral it back and go, okay, look at, my kids didn't do well on 14, your kids didn't do, that's a standard that we really need to look at and go, how are we teaching that? Do we need to teach that one differently? Is that still a priority standard or not? And so it really has led to a lot of great conversations for us as teachers to talk about what it is we're teaching, how we're teaching it, and why or why not our kids are getting it.
And we also can have conversations, we mentioned the blue line represents time. And so not only feedback for us on, you know, if it's not bad that a question took longer than the others. but it can give us feedback on the grit and perseverance on particular questions. And then also we can isolate it by student, where if you see a particular student is getting quite a few wrong and each of their timestamps is really short, it produces conversations of how can we spend more time, be more careful and more conscientious on our work to produce maybe a different result.
They're not multiple choice.
No,
They're short answer, they're
Yeah.
actually graphing, they're a very rich math content program, and that's why we really liked that Edulastic software or app in order to
Yep.
be able to use that.
It's interactive.
Awesome.
And then this is something else we do at the conclusion of our test. Before we take our retest, when we give the kids back their stuff, we actually don't give them their grades. We give them the point system off of how many points they
We've
earned.
scored their test.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've scored it, but we don't tell them you got an A. We don't tell them you got a 93%, or, a lot of the times kids will look at it, high and low grades, and shut down and be like, okay, cool, I got an A, I don't have to do anything else. Or, oh man, I failed.
I failed everything.
Like that's the same as usual. And instead of, we're now taking this and breaking it up according to the standard, and then allowing the kids to see, well, I didn't do well on this one specific standard, but I did do well on 3 of these areas. And although I am failing, I'm right there on every single piece of this. And then what it also allows them to do is, that internalizing their own errors, that error analysis, and then shift it towards their own ownership as they are moving forward to the retest. So they know what to expect. This is an area I've got to improve on between last test to the next test.
Fascinating, it's exciting.
Our final slide is the part that each one of us has touched on throughout our presentation, and that's the collaboration piece. And so we're really horizontally aligned within intermediate algebra, like we're aligned to the day, to the minute almost. But that vertical alignment, and so the time during our in-service when we get a chance to meet with our 8th grade, or we get a chance to meet with our advanced algebra team. And so to talk about, we realized not a lot, but there were some like aha moments when we really started digging into the standards. Like something that we thought was our 9th grade standard, we went, wait a minute, that's really an 8th grade standard. And something that we thought was a priority standard for us was also a priority standard for Algebra 2. And we're going, do we need it to be a priority standard in both or not? And so that whole alignment and knowing our standards and all of that has just been amazing for us. And that it's not a curriculum that drives, it's not what Pearson says is our standards, but we're really looking at our state standards and then that alignment process. So that's been good.
With the data analysis, as we talked about with Edulastic, again, having those conversations about best practices, one of the other supports we put in place was a program, our RTI class, which is a response to intervention. We looked at a couple of different components, teacher recommendation, overall history, academic history and mathematics, and MCA scores, and we sort of looked at all of them to figure out where kids were at and what we needed to do to provide them some interventions in addition to what's already happening inside our classroom with all of those additional best practices. So RTI is a class that I host, and I have a sprinkle of kids from all different classes, all different teachers, and we are spending a lot of time pre-teaching some of these concepts. So they are actually finding success and being excited when they go into the class because they already know how to do this before the teacher actually teaches it. And so they feel confident raising their hand and saying, I got this, like I know the answer to this because, and they don't tell why, but they already have that built in for them.
The participation goes up and the confidence goes up for those struggling learners who have had that preview of the content in advance.
And the selection for RTI comes in the summer. So we sit down in the summer and we look at the data we're getting from our 8th grade staff, and their exit data becomes our entrance data. So we sit down as a staff and we look at their data, and we use, like we said, the MCA, their grades, some teacher recommendations, and we have to come up with our top 20 list because that's all we can host in that course. And so our other class sizes are slightly higher because we had to take one of Alexis's sections away from her teaching intermediate algebra so that she could support an RTI section. So each of our numbers went up slightly because you take 32 students that Alexis can't have that hour, you know, and they're double dipping. So we had to then take those 32 kids and disperse them in our other sections, but we felt like the trade-off was really worth it. That the RTI model, we know to get kids to be successful, they just need more time. And the double dipping, so they lose a elective in order to do RTI, but we felt that the reward, again, we're trying to get them to be successful in math and understand math, and so that was our way of.
Do they have an option in that, or do you just tell them they're doing that? or how
They
does that
don't
work?
really have an option.
Okay.
Yeah, occasionally they'll get their schedule, and then a parent might come in and talk to the counselor and go, now, what's this RTI, and why are they put here, and we can pretty easily defend it.
Yeah.
You know?
Parents are pretty supportive of this. I can't think of any that we had any, where our parents said no.
Okay.
Just
And
absolutely no.
Interestingly, many students ask for it for the next year. That they say, oh, I had RTI in 9th grade, can I get signed up for RTI in 10th grade? And they want it to continue because they are feeling successful, sometimes for the first time.
Are there any other teachers doing that yet?
Well, it's hard.
It's hard.
Because again, it's staffing, you know, so do you want your course numbers to go up to 36? You know, when we're already super tight on where we're at on numbers, and so it's a hard, we know it produces successful students, but it comes down to, you know, the money to be able to finance that.
So how much time do you now spend together compared to even 3 years ago, where you probably didn't collaborate
Well, we
at all?
keep hoping that by next year we'll
Yeah.
be, you know,
Yeah.
which is kind of, our last slide is kind of where we're at. You know,
Yeah.
we have the divide and conquer mentality right now. We'll sit down during our PLC time and we'll go, okay, here's where we're at. Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? Who's gonna do that? And we each end up taking a lesson usually is how we split it. So like I'm in charge of lesson 5-3. My job is to, you know, be sure the homework is ready, be sure the homework video is ready, be sure the questions are ready in Edulastic, be sure our teacher template is ready for presentation with warm-ups that reflect what their weaknesses were from the day before, you know, and so I will take one lesson a week. Alexis will take one lesson a week, Janelle will take one lesson a week, and if it's my week, then I might get 2 lessons that week, you know, or whatever, but it is time crazy. Time crazy.
Right. Spend a lot of time.
Yeah, a lot of time together. And like Una said before, we do enjoy each other, so that helps too. But it's nice to have supportive colleagues. Other resources that we have needed are digital subscriptions. You know, we are pretty much, we've moved away from the textbook and are completely independent of that. And so with that comes, you know, a cost savings on not having to purchase textbooks, but there are other needs to be able to successfully deploy a curriculum, an aligned curriculum that's standards-based. We have needed things like Edulastic because we can really tie it to the standard. And in fact, Edulastic doesn't allow you to move forward until you tie something to the standard, which I'm sure Tim really likes. You can't bypass that screen. You have to tie it to the standard before you move forward. But other things including Screencastify, which we use to record our lesson videos, our homework videos, and then Smart Notebook, which is our presentation software that allows like me to create a lesson but share it with Alexis and Eunice so they can use it in their classrooms as well. And then continued professional development. We've been longtime attendees of the MCTM Math Conference in Duluth each spring, and
We're members of the Minnesota Math Leaders, and so that's a quarterly meeting down in the cities that we attend, and we tie it to, it's our growth, you know, like if we're not allowed the professional development, that's our growth mindset. I mean, we're just constantly learning, and I think of where we were to where we are now, and it's just all been about our growth and our willingness to not settle for something that we're just super persistent about, you know, that we believe is best for kids. And so hopefully that's reflected in what you saw today. So,
Wow.
What does RTI stand for again?
response to intervention. So we notice kids who have a need, what's our response to that? You know, so how are we gonna respond? We know we had 20 kids fail. What's our response to that? How do we better help serve them?
And this is just one additional support. We've already, a lot of the things that we already have in place are forms of RTI. It's just an actual course that provides them a structured.
Yeah, we have
Additional
lots of
support, yeah.
interventions, but that's a special
So these would
course.
be students that are not in the special ed program, typically.
Yeah.
But still need interventions, but maybe don't qualify for special ed, or this is an intervention to see if we're able to make improvements prior to trying to qualify for special ed.
Being a parent and trying to support my children that are taking math is my second most stressful role. So can parents sign up for RTI?
No, but you could
we have the
subscribe to our
videos.
Google Classroom.
We have had parents say, well, I watched the video with them, and then, we did it, and so that really gives access to more, because they want to help but haven't been in the classroom that day, and so the video is a really great resource.
So I have a question, ladies.
Yeah.
What is the highest level of math that's required for all students? And what grade level is that at?
Advanced algebra, and that is typically in their junior year.
So intermediate algebra is a grade 9, geometry typically is a grade 10, and advanced algebra is a grade 11.
Okay.
And college bound will take a senior math after that. Our accelerated kids are just a year ahead of that.
Okay. So that hasn't really changed that much in the last 50
It
years.
hasn't. No, state standards require through algebra 2.
When I entered BHS in 1972, we still used slide rules.
Yeah.
We did. There was no graphing calculators, there were
Yeah.
obviously no computers.
Yeah.
So what is the impact that computers have done on math? I can see it in all the,
Yeah,
Access.
access. And actually, we referenced the research, the brain research that Joe Bowler from Stanford University is working on. And one of the things that she shares is the technology has removed the need for fast calculations. You don't need to be fast at math because you have the technology to be fast at math. What we are looking for and what we feel like employers are looking for are those soft skills and being able to talk with other people about math, being able to persist at topics that are hard and problem solve, and to be able to stick with something even or make a plan to get through something that is difficult. And so the technology has removed the need for some of those calculation type things and instead allowed us some time to focus on problem solving.
so do the kids still use graphing calculators or?
Yes,
Okay.
yep. And we have a link to a graphing calculator on their Chromebook too. So if they don't have their own handheld,
Oh,
we
great.
do have one that they can use on their Chromebook.
On their Chromebook. And we also have a rental program through the Media Center if they want a
A loan
handheld.
program.
Yeah.
Well, this has just been fascinating. Several positive comments, transformational, I would say. It's nice, the collaboration. Tim, you've been holding out on us here, I think, in this presentation. But, my ask would be, how do we take what the three of you are doing? How do we populate that throughout in other subjects? And, fortunately, you three get along well together. But seriously, we need to populate this throughout. I love the consistency piece of it, so that it's, as our kids went through, same content throughout the year, different teachers, different results. And you're bringing that together, and I love the fact that you're continuing to learn yourselves and demonstrating that, so,
I
great
think a lot of
job.
other teachers, we had that presentation from science too, they were doing.
They're doing a lot of standards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And it is,
fantastic, let's keep it
standards
rolling.
driven.
Yeah.
It for sure is.
Good.
So,
Just
This-
a different avenue.
Yeah.
This
thank
might be a little outside of what you pay attention to, but my children are generally in grade school, I guess I have one in sixth grade, but do you know if this type of presentation, but more importantly, the support, like I love the videos and I go to Khan Academy and all that type of
Right,
stuff.
right.
I've learned more math in the
I
last
agree.
couple of years, just trying to help with second grade math.
Yeah.
But is there any thought on this being supported, or this type of support for elementary as well? Or would it be possible, do you think?
I don't know. That's a good question to ask. I know I presented a week ago at our curriculum coordinating council, and within the week, I had a couple emails from my colleagues out at Forest View going, hey, you talked about the videos that you use, you know, what program are you using to record? I'm gonna be gone, and I think it would be really beneficial for my kids to hear me and have me present even though I have a sub that day. You know, and so we are, like I said, we've been doing this for 10 to 15 years. And our buy-in is great because we have just seen such success with it. But we need to be cautious in requiring it for everyone, just because we just need to take it slow. Like, could you just do this for one unit? And really, we're trying, at 9-12, we're aligned pretty much like this across the board. But as we talk about maybe out at Forest View or going earlier in grades, my advice is just take one unit and really delve into your standards and know what your standards are saying and how could you rewrite just one unit. And let's rewrite one unit this year, and then let's maybe next year rewrite 2 more units, you know, and so I think it is something that can gradually change over time, but where we're down the road a really long ways right now. We're just almost to the tweaking. I keep saying that. We're almost to the tweaking stage, you know, where we can just start to refine now what we've done. But there's a lot of people that are at a very beginning stage of just even having a common assessment or a common grading practice. Like they don't even agree on that
Common
yet.
standards.
And so we're getting there. That's what we've been working on with our earlier grades as well.
I think we have our 3 champions to populate this and move it faster.
My final comment is just a challenge, not just for you, but probably even the board here, is that with girls, I'm a father of 2 girls and I have a boy. And I was at a conference a number of years ago where they talked about the importance of math with girls. And by 3rd grade, I think he used, if by 3rd grade, girls are already getting the probably unintended, but belief that math is not for them. And so we need to grab hold of them much earlier. Not that you or we are not doing that, but it's a big concern of mine that we're just allowing a lot of girls to proceed forward thinking that math isn't for them, but it just hasn't been provided in a way that works for them, or more importantly, supported.
And now I'm curious to look at our data, and we haven't compared the number of female failure rates at the 9th grade level to the male failure rates at the 9th grade level. You know, I mean, we just have them all pooled in one spreadsheet, but I guess that would be interesting for us to see. You know, is there some data that suggests that females are? My gut is I don't think so.
And that actually goes into deeper data, I mean, truly, because they talk about that speed, and we're removing that idea of speed is important, but at the elementary school, it was a long time practice for kids to be faster, and what they actually found out is statistically, boys were faster initially, and girls were not, and so there was that preconceived notion that, well, because I'm not as fast, I'm shifting into, you know, and so I have a daughter who's, you know, younger too, and that's always something I'm always looking into, of that she's not getting it yet. And we really are pushing that. So know that even at our levels, that we're trying to grab those kids and get them in, and know that just because you didn't get it at this point doesn't mean you can't. And we believe that everybody can.
Well, great, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good.
Thanks for not making us take a test.
Were you a little afraid when those equations came up?
I was asking questions because I didn't want them to ask me.
I was sitting there doing the math on the clock, and it's like,
Okay, next up, we're gonna have Damien and Scott give us a presentation.
See how
Building
they,
update.
see how they can compete with that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh, we can compete.
You guys, before you start, I just want to ask you a question. You know, we talked about vaping tonight at the high school. What is the policy for construction workers on site with smoking or vaping? Can they smoke while they're working, or, so they have to have a cigarette break?
There's no tobacco use, period, on district-owned grounds.
Oh,
They have to
great.
leave district property.
Is that a problem with some people, or?
No, it hasn't been. You might catch a few stragglers here or there on their way back to the property, but we've nipped that in the bud, and it
Even
hasn't
chewing,
been an issue
even
since
chewing
then.
tobacco too, yeah. They can't chew?
Not, we've no nicotine,
No
Nothing.
nothing.
no tobacco products, period, are allowed on the construction sites.
Good question.
You gentlemen?
It's not my slideshow.
Oh, there it goes. Or wait, no, that's Janet.
Janet, oh. I found it. I did.
There it is.
I think it was time test.
Full screen. There you go.
All right. All right, well, here's our bond improvements update for Monday, January 27th, 2020. We're gonna review Wave 1 project updates and Wave 2 project updates. We'll start off with the Brainerd High School.
Just quick project update, roofing started 1/20 of 2020. They're making really good progress. We've already completed most of Area 3, we'll have that wrapped up this week, and they'll be moving into Area 1. Exterior footings are complete for Area 2, so that's the external foundation walls of the whole north construction area, those are all complete. We've just got a couple of little columns that we have to pothole, but we have to thaw ground before we can get to that. Temp offices are complete. District, or I should say the high school staff have been relocated. We've started selective demo in the office administrative area, and that area is gonna get really small here starting about February 3rd. We're gonna go in and pull the roof off and knock that whole wing down, but, yeah, everything's moving around really well. Exterior framing, we're continuing. We actually are finished with ground thawing in Area 3, and we started our underground roughness.
I heard somebody yesterday, I think it was, commenting on the frost this year with the snow, the lack of as freezing temperatures has it made your job a little easier, or is that not a reality, that there's still a lot of frost?
Because the building pad is so elevated and it was fill that was brought in, we've got about 5 feet of frost on the ground. So, with all the equipment running back and forth on there, it just drives the frost further into the ground, so we're thawing about 5 feet.
Scott, with all these issues with collapsed roofs this winter, how much snow could the Performing Arts Center hold without any issues?
I couldn't tell you
10 feet?
It's hard to say. It's
Oh.
been designed to account for snow loading and drifting and things of
Oh,
that
okay.
nature. There is a constant value that they designed to, but I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head.
They also factor in drifting, areas closer to higher roofs for drifting and whatnot too. So they do make accommodations to carry heavier loads depending on where it is on the building.
That's what we ran into at Nisswa, right?
Correct?
There was a problem with the roof?
No.
Oh,
No,
bumps.
there was a
No.
snow drifting.
Yeah, just we had to change the load, right? Right.
All right. Any questions on high school? New Baxter, working on drywall on the first and second floor classroom wing, and then also in the kindergarten area. We're roofing at the cafeteria wing, and then we're working on mechanical and electrical rough-ins at the cafeteria wing. Project's going very well.
Looks like a school now.
It does. It does.
Can we go over there or look, or is there still a time when we could go look at some of these
Absolutely.
the other day? Just
Absolutely.
Show up, or?
Just let us know. We can set something up. We'd be happy to take you on a tour.
Tammy, you wanted to do,
I was just gonna chime in that I would love to do that and set up too. I had just asked Al, in fact, last week, because Lane and I had talked one point about how, that's a tough building for everybody to see, so, I would love to set up. Al, our site guy, is amazing, and noon is a great time of day to go through because most of the guys are on break at that point in time, but I would be happy to work with you and set up, or these guys can too, but I'm happy to be a part of that and watch it run.
I would go.
Yep, we'll set it up with Justin and Al
Okay.
on site. Justin Monica and Al Reichel. Okay.
Thanks.
Nisswa Elementary, working on drywall as well. Drywall is getting taped on the upper level, and they're working on finishing the hanging on the first floor. The aluminum windows, I believe, are about 80% complete. Things are going very well up there. It's still like maybe about a week behind, but we have some time built in the schedule. We think we can actually pick that up when we get into finishes, so.
Forest View Middle School is substantially complete. We're just waiting for our sign for the Brainerd B, and that's coming mid-February. Harrison Elementary, it's in the drywall stage as well. They're hanging and taping on the upper level, drywalling on the main level, and they're also working on some steel stud framing on the lower level. Interior stair railing 1 has been installed. They're also working on demolition in the nurses area. And exterior glazing is being installed, and the exterior metal panels have started. So lots of good progress up there. That project is, I believe we looked at a revised schedule looking end of April on that project. So, and things are tracking well now. So
I'm sorry, what's exterior glazing again?
windows.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Storefront, aluminum storefronts.
Got it, thank you.
Curtain wall. Yep. Garfield Elementary contracts have been sent out for execution. Pre-construction meeting will be scheduled once the contracts are executed. So we've awarded the contracts and sent them out, and I believe they're coming back as we speak, all the documentation. Lowell, mechanical redesign is underway. It'll be issued Thursday for rebid, that scope of work. So, and then we're looking at bids coming in on the 13th of February. And then we're looking at the possibility of a special board meeting on the 14th of February to review the other bids after we get the information here on this bid. So, Riverside Elementary, we had good bidding. We had good bid results on January 23rd. We get the luxury of spending some time looking at all of the options on the alternates. We'll be meeting with district and staff on Thursday to start those discussions, and then also at the next project oversight team meeting. So we'll be looking forward to that. Baxter Early Childhood is currently out to bid. Our pre-construction meeting our pre-bid meeting, excuse me, is scheduled for tomorrow. And then bid opening is scheduled for February 11th. Everything's on track there. Any questions?
That was a lot quicker than last month.
Right.
Or 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Well, we had to pick up all in December.
Oh.
So, our last couple weeks. So, any questions at all, guys?
All right, thanks, guys.
Good work.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we'll move into some actionable items. So first up is approval of the organizational board meeting held January 13th.
I'll move the approval of the organizational board meeting.
Second.
Who are you giving it to?
We'll go with a motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Campbell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is approval of our regular board meeting, same day, January 13th.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Kern. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda. Approval of.
So moved.
move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Director Campbell, second by Director Nystrom. Any discussion? Not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Continuing on, under new business, approval of the first budget revision of 2019-20 and 20, as presented by Marcy Lord earlier.
I'll move the approval of the first budget revision.
Second.
Motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Campbell. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is approval of ratification of custodial contract for 2019 through 2021, and Heidi Hahn is going to give us the highlights.
Good evening. Pretty tough act to follow with our math teachers. Very exciting to see the work they're doing, and when you hear the word OER, so Open Educational Resources, that's a prime example of the work that happens there, how they can curate their own curriculum around the standards and really customize it to our students, and make it very interactive and adjust it on a daily basis. So that was very exciting to hear, and just gets me excited to hear the good stuff happening rather than all the business. But speaking of business, the custodial contract, you have a copy in front of you. The highlights really are condensed. The main movement that we've been making in contracts, again, is in health insurance. Our custodial unit, the movement that they made is that fixed amount each year that mirrors kind of that change that happened in the teachers. So that's the movement that was made there. So they're still going to be remaining on that B and C. Change in the salary schedule is an increase of 1% each year on their wages. That's pretty much the overall settlement pieces of that contract. We did do a slight increase for some of the boiler certifications that are required, trying to encourage more of our custodial unit to get that higher level of training. And besides that, in the red line contract before you, we've barely been working to clean up some of the language that exists across all of our contracts. So when there's some more standardization on the pieces that occur. So those are some of the red line changes that you saw in that contract.
Heidi,
Yes.
was there a reason why there wasn't movement to plans G&H?
This is the group that dug in their heels the longest. They really, very veteran staff that have had that insurance package, and they did not want to give that up. But the movement that they did make was the fixed amount. So next time in negotiations, when we look at a settlement package, is do you want to apply that towards health insurance? Or do you want to apply that towards your salary increases? So we got the slight movement. That's why we have the 1% and the 1% in each of those years that got us to the settled contract. They know it's an ongoing discussion, as it's been with all of our units. But again, I would say very veteran staff that have been with us quite a while.
At this point, they're the only group that hasn't moved, right?
We still have one
That's
contract
in-
unsettled, and that's the cooks, and that's a contract we're still negotiating. Our hope, we meet with them Thursday of this week again, and so our hope is to be bringing that forward. But beyond that, every unit has made movement. We have one more contract to settle, and then we should be up to date with all of our contracts, which makes Angie and I very excited. But they did give us slight movement with the fixed, so that's why we did do the 1-on-1. This did stay within our budgeted amount and our projections overall.
I'll move the approval of the custodial contract for 2019 through 21.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Blacklands for approval of the custodial contract as presented. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is approval
Thanks,
of the
Heidi.
Baxter Early Childhood Center renovation stormwater easement and maintenance agreement that is in your packet. And Reed's going to say a few words.
Yes, I can. Which one are we on? So we are on the Early Childhood Center renovation stormwater easement and maintenance agreement. So the city, as part of the permitting process, whenever there is improvements made to a facility, they look at all the utility requirements on that property, and one of them in that area, because it is a the watershed is for that lake is right there, so they have the stormwater management plan. The details of that plan is that it just outlines the criteria that both organizations have as far as maintaining it, and so what this one is gonna involve is it talks about our maintenance requirements to the ponds or the pools that are right there located at the facility, so.
Yeah, when you look at the map, there's a lot more wastewater ponds around than there is now.
Yep.
Is that just change in requirements from, is that what it is?
Yeah, so
Because we're
there-
actually demolishing part of the building. so
Correct,
we-
and so there's quite a, on that shoreline district, there's quite a requirement for impermeable surface. So we're actually increasing our green space, and we're reducing the amount of solid coverage that we have there. So we're never gonna be able to get to what the requirement is for that, and I think you can have up to 25% impermeable surface. In that area, we're up in the 50% range. It's actually down, I think we're 54, it was down from 58. Those numbers are vague in my head here, I don't have them in front of me exactly. But, so we're making improvements, and part of the concession to that is that we're gonna put in these stormwater retention ponds to help with water quality in that area. And so they signed off, the city signed off on that as an allowable exception to meeting that minimum requirement. So with that, again, comes our criteria on maintaining it. So the pond to the east by the gas station, and the pond to the very west, which would be right by their stormwater, or their septic, or the stormwater system there, that pumping station, those two are gonna be maintained by the city, and then we'll maintain the two to the south of the facility. So if you, on this plan here, you can see the ponds themselves.
I think that's back on.
So what is it about those ponds that clean the water? Just
So it's a retention pond, so what'll happen is all the stormwater from these sites, they drain down into, they'll drain down into, I gotta get the right plan here for you. They will drain into these retention ponds, and then based on that, what it's gonna do, it's gonna hold that water there and it's gonna filter through the soil. Instead of running off and going right into the storm sewer and being sent out and going into other wetland and collection areas, we're gonna hold that water on site and let it naturally filter through the ground. And that's what helps with water quality.
They can be fenced, Reed? Are they gonna have fences?
They
around
will
them?
not have
They don't
fencing
need
around
to-
them,
need
no.
to be?
That was brought up at the city council meeting about some potential screening here along the west end of the parking lot. They did not require that as a condition of building the structures, or condition of building the site, so they asked about some screening. You know, we could potentially look at some natural screening, but mechanical screening was not required.
Well, there's a big retention pond in Forest View there,
Correct.
and the kids slide down it and, so.
Most of the time they won't have water, is that correct?
I wouldn't say most of the time, it will have water, in there, I mean, depending upon the weather conditions, but, Tim Ramerth from WSN would be able to speak to that on what they designed it for, but I believe it's planned to have some water in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had a wet year, we have two
Yeah.
retention ponds, 100-year retention ponds, and there's water, you know, when we went into the winter, but it's unusual wet summer too. But I would say usually they would be dry.
That's what, yeah, I thought.
I know the water tables in this area over here too have been very high because of the amount of moisture that we've had this year, so.
Okay.
And the lake there is high.
Yep, that entire area is. yes.
Read with the recorrection and platting of the properties out there. Didn't we own property technically in the cemetery?
Yeah, well, and I can give
Oh,
you an
you're
update
getting
on that
that.
when we
Oh,
get
okay.
down
Yeah,
to,
what's
that
the
one's
next
on the list here as well, so we can, I'll definitely give you an overview on that one as well.
Okay.
Sure.
Any other questions on this piece?
Fairly straightforward. We're gonna have one of these at the new Baxter Elementary School as well, because there's, water retention out there, and we have one at Forest View, so.
And just to update the board as well, all four of the items that Reed is going to be talking about now, there's been an extensive amount of work done between the district and the city of Baxter, and the city council at Baxter approved these last week. And so this is the final step in getting all of this finalized for our Baxter Early Childhood Program, so.
I so move approval of the Baxter Early Childhood Easement and Maintenance Agreement.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Director Campbell, second by Director Nystrom. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next up is approval of our ISD 181 limited use agreement for signage and Jasperwood Drive right-of-way.
Okay. Directors, on both of these next two items, specifically the Jasperwood limited use agreement, our wayfinding signs that we have at the new Baxter Elementary School, the wayfinding signs that we have there and also at Forest View Middle School are installed in the right-of-way of the city street. So the city asks us for a limited use agreement, basically saying that you want to put them there, you're responsible for the maintenance and ongoing upkeep of those signs, and so it's just a joint use agreement with them. That's for your next two items, number 4 and 5.
Why would that differ from standard procedure?
A lot of times they won't allow us to put signs in that right away. We have to go in and permit for that and ask for this limited, essentially get this limited use agreement to be in place before they'll allow us to put them in the right of way.
Okay.
So.
And many
if-
of these signs are the ones that we've specifically asked for to show directions where people can go in and park and all those kinds of things. So this was an ask from us and granted by the city council.
I'll move approval of the ISD 181 limited use agreement for, am I on the right one? Yeah, for signage.
Second.
Motion by Director Nelson, second by Director Kern for approval of the limited use agreement for signage. Any further discussion? All All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 5 is virtually the same, only in this case it's for Nolan.
I move to approve the limited use agreement for signage in Wood Drive.
Second.
Motion by Director Blackman, second by Director Campbell. Any further discussion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Last item, approval to adopt the resolution approving the revised and final plat between the new Baxter Early Childhood Center and the city of Baxter.
So when we went forward with the permitting process, and I'm going to get you an interactive map here for the site. But essentially, as we have the current Baxter Elementary School, there are numerous different parcels that run through and around that property. There are easements for roadways and utility easements and spaces there that really needed to be cleaned up a long time ago, that would encompass our entire site. And so the part of this process that the city and the district agreed to do, and we did this before, was we talked about going forward with this platting process to clean up all those boundary lines of property lines throughout the district, or throughout that school site. And when I get this pulled up, you'll see all of the yellow lines that are through there. But essentially, what the city and district did is we had WSN go forward and replat the Oscar Christopherson Park and Cemetery area. Excuse me one second while I find that. So the baseball and softball fields behind the elementary school, the school district's property actually runs on the west side of that park. And so and what we're going to do moving forward with this is we're going to clean up all of those property lines, those roadway easements, and all of the lines where the Baxter Cemetery property comes across our driveway, and that we've been using it as a driveway for however long the school has been there. We're going to reorientate those property lines and shift this around where we're trading those little chunks of property so that we maintain accurate property lines with where the properties actually are. So we can zoom in on the Baxter Elementary School. And this will give you an idea when the lines load here. Essentially, all of these little lines are separate parcels. So this is actually the Baxter Cemetery right here, and you can see the wing addition here in the playground is actually on Baxter property. That was started and agreed upon, Lane, I forget the exact date. It's been some number of years ago, back in the 90s probably, that whenever this addition was done. I don't know if Tammy, when was the
And
kindergarten?
there's written understanding that they had agreed to, that the school district could put their building on
Yep.
this property, but it was never legally finalized.
Was never recorded at the county recorder's
never
office, so they went and
recorded,
did the survey and did all that to make the land exchange happen, but they never recorded it. You can see here, there's this little sliver that runs back, and then we hit this parking lot. Actually, this parking lot, the tennis courts, and these ball fields right here are actually school district property. And so we're cleaning up, we're gonna maintain that property, and then we're going to clean up this property line down here. So you can see where the tip of the property actually comes up here. This is actually cemetery property. We're gonna orientate that property line to go follow the drive line here. And so we're gonna clean up all of this. So it's being replatted. Basically, the school district, the agreement we had with the city of Baxter was to, we would move forward with it. They would cover the attorney's fees, the legality pieces of doing the replatting, and then we would pay for the surveying piece of it to have it replatted. So, really, it's just a bunch of cleanup.
Why don't you show that line that Bob had talked about just a little bit ago, about that line that goes right through the gymnasium?
Yeah, this is actually an easement right here, so there's a sliver of property right here that would run through for like a roadway easement, an old roadway easement that was here, so technically they could have extended this road straight down.
Oh, wow.
And run right through the gymnasium and I think this is our 4th grade classroom wing over here, so it's an old easement that's there that they will never extend that road that way, being that Maplewood runs now to the west of the Baxter Elementary School. So basically they're vacating those easements. We're really just doing all of the I dotting and T crossing here to make this property all very, very easy to understand. What year was this wing added on? the kindergarten wing?
It was a
Anyway.
while ago.
Oh, so anyways, yeah, some time ago, but it's been that way and we've been running that way for some time, so.
Reed, I can see how that mess happened.
Yeah.
The original Baxter Township was centered right there. You had the cemetery, the city hall, the original Baxter Independent School District, and there was an old gas station there. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Probably about 62.
Okay.
And I just have to say, I was reading an article about, I'm a big basketball fan, but I was just reading something on the accident that happened, and so caught up in what I was reading.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
All right, anything else, Reed, or?
No, really, it's just any questions that you would have on the plat realignment.
How about what do we have to plow, plow there, Rita? Do we do the whole parking lot, or is that city and?
Yep, so we take care of this. The city takes care of this here, and so also on this, Director Campbell will be, part of this will be an agreement with the city of Baxter, a perpetual use agreement for the Oscar Christopherson Park to continue to operate back here on district property. Administrator Chapulis, Trevor from their Public Works Department and their Street Department, and myself, we are working on drafting that use agreement. So it will talk about that the school, even though the ball fields have been built on here per that and whatever agreement way back in the day, we'll figure out the language on how that they're required to maintain those fields because it's for their park. And so we'll get that agreement drafted and we'll bring it back in front of you for review.
So as the school district moves forward with possibly changing some of its fees or usage fees for our facilities, that won't be included in part of that?
We've never charged for the rental of this, and so, we can definitely look at that lease agreement with the city and see if there's any language we want to put in there for leasing this space from us, being that they use it.
I'm not suggesting it,
Okay.
It sounded like we weren't going to have to worry about
It hasn't been in all these years past. We have not exchanged money for the use of that. It's just been an agreed-upon exchange that we use this parking lot during the day for our staff parking and for parent drop-off right here, as we have the walkway that comes up to the back doors of the elementary school. It's still planned for that to be part of the drop-off location for the elementary school for the Fun and Friends, I believe what's gonna be located there, the before care and after care program, so.
Yeah, and I'm in support of that. The only thing is we might want to be clear on that as we move forward with some changes here.
Well,
School
this,
district.
this change tonight is simply to get the boundaries in line, so where it
Correct.
has nothing to
Yes.
do with the
That's all it
use
is.
of the
Correct.
property and agreements, yeah, that'll come next. This is simply making sure that anything that the school properties that we use, buildings are on our land, which.
Our land,
that's
correct.
all this is.
Yep. So what that'll do is it'll take this yellow line that you see here, this property line, and it will actually encompass our playground now, and will be a permanent property assignment to the school district. And then we will bring this down to this corner, we'll draw that line up to here, and encompass this property all in one border.
Yep.
Great.
Great, good.
Great. I'll make the motion to approve the resolution or to do the resolution to pass this.
Second.
Motion by Director Nystrom, second by Director Campbell for approval. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Reed, for all your work on this.
We have resolution in here, but I don't believe we need, you want a
It says resolution.
yeah, but
You don't think we have to do it?
Roll call?
Maybe we should, just to be safe.
Roll call vote?
At the city council, they didn't, but.
Paperwork, so, Reed Campbell,
Yes.
Tom Haglund.
yes.
Sue Kern,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson.
Yes.
Bob Nystrom.
Yes.
Charles Blackland,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. Okay, next up is informational curriculum report. Director Murtha, anything?
The only thing I have to add after the presentation is that the Elementary Literacy Special Education Task Force, which has been working for over a year on its RTI structure for elementary reading, has completed its work and made a recommendation that will be going to DAC in February for the adoption of Read Well by Voyager Sopris as the comprehensive literacy intervention for special ed for students from more than 2 years behind. So for a targeted population, this would be the recommended comprehensive resource, and this would be added to the ones that we currently have, which will allow us to create a menu of options for special ed teachers to choose from as they work to fulfill the needs of kids. So that's the only addition I got.
What is our date, our DAC in February? Well, you can tell me later.
Oh, you asked. So whatever you had in the pool.
I think I have it.
It's not in February because the next one's in March.
That's why I didn't have it. Okay,
That's right.
thank you.
Mr. Murtha?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever use a slide rule?
Yes.
You did?
I am the son of a civil engineer.
Oh, okay. Huh, so they were still being used.
Oh, yeah. But barely. It was more of a curiosity. When I was in ninth grade geometry, we had to learn how to do square roots by hand. Because calculators were the devil.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, how old are you?
The devil.
No.
I'm not that old, I just had a very old teacher.
Oh.
All right, business service report. Marcy's got a few more. Thanks,
Just
Diane.
an update on the financial report. You know, the general fund, food service fund, and community service fund were within 2% of last year. And the budget revision will be on the January report next month. And just a final note, property acquisition, the final closing was on the 17th, so.
Great.
Yeah, any questions?
Thanks, Marcy. Superintendent's report.
Just a real quick one here, just a few calendar items. Once again, we want to invite everyone to the big event on Saturday. The Education Foundation and board members have put a great deal of time and energy into it, and so we look forward to everyone coming. It's 2020 vision, the future is bright. The VIP starts at 5 o'clock, followed by the regular event at 5:30, and so we look forward to everybody being able to come to that. One other thing that's not on this agenda is we are going to be having some furniture fairs. And on February 11th, all day long in the gymnasium at the high school, there's going to be a number of furniture items that people can stop by and look at as we try to decide what the best decisions are moving forward for our secondary buildings. And students, staff, everybody will be invited, along with administration, to give their input as to what the best decisions are moving forward.
What
So,
date?
February 11th, from 9 to 3, you can come anytime to the gymnasium and give your input about what you feel are good choices for our kids.
Lane, is the public invited?
It's more,
It's more-
Andrea, would you say it's public invited, or is it more staff and students, right?
Maybe more staff and.
And
Okay.
students, yeah. The next day, we're going to have another one for our elementaries from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And that's going to be kind of a neat event because we're having teachers from early primary elementary and intermediate elementary. And they're going to actually, the teachers themselves are going to do some room designs, and they're going to be looking at a significant amount of equipment. But I'd like to invite the board as well, if you want to stop by sometime between 12 and 3.
What's
We-
Is that at the gym too?
And that, nope, that's at room 200 here at Wesby.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if you want to see some of the products that are available and see some of the things that our staff are thinking are innovative furniture for the buildings in the future, please feel free to come.
I'm sorry, what's the time again? Time?
From 12 to 3. So the 11th is all day from 9 to 3, and the 12th is from 12 to 3 at Wesby, room 200. And then lastly, our next board meeting will be on the 10th of February, and we'll have possibly a special meeting on Friday the 14th, but we're kind of waiting to see some things that happen with Lowell to determine if we have that special board meeting or not. So please be watching for that. We'll let you know for sure on the 10th.
In line with those meetings, there was a concern that there'd be a quorum present, because Tom and I are going to be gone. Should we,
No, I'm here on the 10th,
He'll
oh,
be here
okay.
the 10th, so,
just the
Yep.
agenda meeting that.
Oh,
yep,
okay.
yep, very good, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that report. Anything else to come before the board? If not, we have one more thing to do.
I move to adjourn.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, I thought it was cake or something.
Is there a second?
gonna second
to
it?
adjourn?
Second.
Okay. Motion second to adjourn, all in favor, say aye.
Is that your birthday? Really?